In this video, we're going to change the front wheel bearing ABS sensor assembly on a 2006 Crown Victoria. And this also applies to a 2003 and newer Crown Victoria or Mercury Grand Marquis or Lincoln Town Car. Begin by lifting the vehicle off the ground and supporting it on a jack stand. Now remove the front wheel. Now we're going to remove the brake caliper along with its mounting bracket, and the rotor will be able to slide off. I'm using various different tools to accomplish just this job. I have a 15mm wrench. I have a large torque wrench with a short extension. I have a 18mm socket, a 15mm socket, a small extension, a medium-sized ratchet wrench, and this 3/8 drive old torque wrench I just use for wrenching on things. To remove the brake caliper and its mounting bracket, there's just two bolts on the back that you're going to use the 18mm socket, and it removes the bracket from the steering knuckle. And there's not a lot of room to work in here. These bolts are very tight. You may have to jiggle the caliper to get the bolt to turn easier. Make sure you're supporting the weight of the caliper. It's very heavy. Don't let it dangle on the brake line. And the whole caliper and bracket slides off as an assembly by just removing those two bolts. You can rest the brake caliper on the top of the control arm, and then the rotor just slides off. So here's the hub assembly. It attaches to the steering knuckle by 4 bolts on the back. You disconnect the electrical connection for the ABS speed sensor, and you have 4 bolts that are it's a 15mm socket on the back. And once you remove those 4 bolts, the hub assembly should come right out of the steering knuckle. You may find it easier to remove the sway bar linkage to gain access to this lower bolt, but I leave this this linkage installed, and I just use a swivel socket, a swivel extension on the socket to get the bolt off. Just use your swivel extension and make sure the socket is seated on the bolt all the way. There we go. It's a little bit too long to come all the way out, so we'll leave it there. This is red stuff they use on there from the factory. It's really difficult. And if you're lucky to have a car from the where it doesn't snow, your hubs just pull right out of the knuckle like that. A lot of people have corrosion in between the knuckle and the wheel bearing, and you have to heat the knuckle with a torch to get it to expand, and this will come out once you heat this up. Your new ABS sensor wheel bearing assembly, you just with the plug pointed down, you can put it in with the plug pointed up, and that's the wrong way. You want to have the this plug pointed downwards, and then reinstall your 4 bolts from the back and torque them down to more or less around 75 to 80 foot-pounds. Between 75 and 85 foot-pounds, you torque those 4 bolts. It's wise to use some thread locker on there. It has the thread locker from the factory, and it'd be a good idea to replace that thread locker when you install your new hub. I don't have any blue thread locker, I only have red. Blue would be ideal to use, but I ran out of blue, and I had already started the job, so this is all I have. I'm just going to use this thread. It's a little stronger than the blue. Get all the bolts started and threaded on before you torque them down. It makes it easier to get the bolts threaded into the hole when they're all loose. Now torque these 4 bolts to about 85 foot-pounds. Now that the hub is bolted in and torqued down, we're going to reinstall the electrical connection. Plug the harness back into the rear of the hub. Make sure the rubber boot is up all the way. Now it's time to put the brake rotor back on. The brake rotor slides onto the hub, and the brake caliper slides onto the rotor. Slide the rotor in between the brake pads. And while supporting the weight of the brake caliper, you thread your bolts back into the caliper bracket. Make sure your brake line is not twisted up. You take your 18mm and tighten these bolts down. And that's it. The hub and the brake caliper are reinstalled. Now it's time to put the wheel back on, lower the car back down, and it's done. Torque your lug bolts down to 90 foot-pounds.